Hello. I'm Mikey Dickerson. I guess you just said that. I administrate something called the U.S. Digital Service. It's a little hard to see you, but has anybody heard of us? A few. That's not too bad. I have been doing, I first got involved working on healthcare.gov, as they said a second ago. I have been doing a talk since then about healthcare.gov. This is not that, believe it or not. It's been a year, maybe it's time to talk about something else. It is relevant, however, that we got our start out of the ashes of healthcare.gov. That is what lent the urgency and the interest at high levels in the administration to do something better with government technology. When I started in August, I thought I was going to be administrating a group of about 10 people working on a handful of just a very small number, maybe 2 or 3 high-priority projects. And it has changed quite a bit since then. In December, Congress passed a spending bill which funded, unexpectedly to me, funded our entire request for $20 million, which is to say that the group's going to get quite a bit bigger when you consider that we can only pay people GS-15 Step 10 as $158,000. So if you do the math, we're now expected to become a group of about 60, 70 or so. We're going to work on 10, 15 projects, something like that. That was the plan as I understood it last fall. And then it changed again. The 2016 budget was due around the same time, and the new request for next year is $105 million to build a group of about 500 to 600 at all 24 cabinet agencies. I know that's a lot of boring statistics, but the point was that we are trying to do something now which is about 100 times bigger than I thought the last time I was at Velocity in New York. It has changed a little bit. It's been a little bit interesting. So what I thought I would come talk to you about today was a little bit about interacting with bureaucracy in a constructive way. Or I can at least tell you some things that work and do not work on that subject. Given that you already know I work for the government, I hope you believe I have some reasonable credentials to talk about this. My employer has 4.1 million employees on the payroll. We have annual revenue of about $3.9, I think, trillion dollars. A good amount of it came from you all here, so thank you. We appreciate it. You are all our customers. Most of you. You're in the United States right now, so I doubt very much that you made it into this room without paying a tax somewhere along the way. If you didn't, you probably shouldn't advertise that too much. We don't appreciate it a lot. So if you're not interested in hearing about how to interact with bureaucracy, office politics, anything like that, that's okay. It's fairly dark. I won't be able to tell if you're reading your email or whatever. I won't get my feelings hurt. But I think you may be missing out, because much as engineers and technical people hate those words, bureaucracy is literally just, if you ask me, it means nothing more than what happens when you have big groups of people and they're trying to get something done or make a decision of any kind. Like, that is the definition of bureaucracy. It doesn't matter if you like it or hate it, it just is what it is. If you say you work in if you say you work in an office with no office politics, that's like telling me you live in a place with no weather. Like, the strongest possible true statement you could be making is that you live in a place where the weather is very predictable and doesn't affect your life very much. And that's the best you could hope for. Bureaucracy and politics are just words that mean how people make decisions in large groups. And anything that is, I'm editorializing a little bit, but I guess I get to do that. Anything that's worth doing in this world involves organizing a large group of people. So even if you haven't faced this problem yet, you probably will at some point. So let's see. So I told you a little bit about how we have progressed from what I thought was going to be a group of 10 people to the mission being to construct a group of 500 or 600 to take on way more stuff than we thought we would. Here are, let me see. I have, sorry. This is the first time I'm doing this material. It's not super well organized. I'm sorry about that. So things have changed quite a bit. Originally, the first round of recruiting was me emailing a few people I knew on LinkedIn. Now we have a team of 5 or 6 people dedicated to the process of handling the 2,000-something applications that we have in the queue. Which is by way of saying I'm not going to pitch you super hard to apply today either, because that has not been our problem, believe it or not, is getting people interested to work for us. We're dealing with a lot of interest, actually. We've been in the press about 700 times. In the beginning, I saved each little article, figuring I would show them to my friends someday. I don't do that anymore because we average 1 or 2 mentions in the press every day. We've gotten a lot more attention than we expected. What have we actually done in that time? Here's a few things. There is a process. I'll try to make this as least governmenty as I can. There is a process called the I-90. There's a form that you fill out if you lose your green card. If you're a legal permanent resident in the United States and you lose your green card, you need a replacement one. You got to fill out a form. The agency that handles this does traditionally everything on paper. It was taking a few months, 3 to 6 months maybe, for you to get a replacement green card. This is not a great situation to be in if this is your piece of documentation that proves that you're in the country legally and that you can get a job. So that has been moved to an online process, which is a thing that we help do. We are working at the VA, and we do a lot of things that a little bit hard to explain, but are aimed at improving throughput on disability claims. If you follow this news at all, you know that we have a serious problem with a backlog of returning disabled veterans who are entitled to disability benefits from the government, and the claims are taking so long to process that as of the worst point, which I think was around March 2013, there were over 600,000 claims waiting, which meant that the delay in processing times was over years. This is not good for a lot of reasons I don't really have time to go into. Take my word for it, this is really not good. We have done things such as recently, a member of the VA Digital Service team implemented a button that lets you download all of the PDFs that are relevant to looking at a particular part of the process at once, instead of clicking on them one at a time. And since the response time of the system leaves a little bit of room for improvement, it was taking a few minutes to get each PDF. This sounds like not much, and technologically, it's not splitting the atom, as I tend to say about all the stuff we did on healthcare.gov as well. But it made a tremendous productivity improvement to the 100 or so people whose job it is to download PDFs all day long. That is not a made-up story. That is a thing that we did. We did a number of other things like that at the VA, which, like I said, are aimed at reducing the disability claims backlog. We replaced actually, contractors and the agency made these decisions with a little bit of help from us. We replaced the identity management part of the healthcare.gov website, which if you really, really were following every blow-by-blow piece of press on healthcare.gov a year ago, you might remember that the identity management part was a lot of trouble for us. It was a lot of the downtime in the early days of healthcare.gov. It wasn't working very well. Not only was it not working very well, but it was not working very well for a price of about $300 million in development and $70 million a year in ongoing maintenance costs. That was replaced with a thing that we say cost $4 million, and we say that because we're not really sure exactly how much it costs because we don't have a good way to count that low in the government accounting system. So it was a few people working for a few months, and we had a much smoother open enrollment period last year, and we expect to have that again happen next year. That's the kind of stuff we've been doing. I thought I would point out a couple of things we're not doing, since one of the things I've learned as we've gone over this last 6 months journey is that we quite often get pattern matched to other better IT, reform, smart, all these words get mixed around and different initiatives come out, and people frequently think that we are here to build like Bungie in. There are a couple of more and less colorful metaphors that are used in the government for this. You probably have heard of like Bungie bosses from Dilbert. So one thing that people have believed is that we would bungee in, do a fancy new website or a fancy mobile app or something like that that would be super sexy, and we would mostly be in it to get a press story out of it, and then we would disappear again and leave the agency owning the thing to operate forever with no support. We are not interested in those kinds of projects. I feel pretty good that we're not doing much of any of those kinds of projects, which actually makes it a little bit hard for me to talk about what we have done because a lot of it isn't super customer visible, like that VA stuff I was just talking about a second ago. We're absolutely interested in improving the customer experience, but in that particular case, the customer experience is getting your disability claim back in a few weeks instead of in 6 months or a year or 2 years or something. So you will absolutely see the impact of our work in that way. It won't necessarily be in the form of a thing you download that says made by the U.S. Digital Service. We don't tend to do that kind of stuff. Another thing that we don't spend a huge amount of time on is I do not have a 5-year plan. I don't have a 10-year plan. I don't have a 20-year plan. I am doing the best that we can with the year and a half or so that we've got on this administration. I get the question all the time, what do you do? What will happen when you leave? What will happen when you leave? How are you institutionalizing this? How will this stick around? I get a little frustrated because to my way of thinking, we haven't really done enough yet to prove that we're worth institutionalizing. The part of institutionalizing that I think is worth doing is the part where we show good enough results in the next year or two that anybody with any amount of brains in the future administration, I'm very tempted to make some colorful political comments here, but I will refrain. Let's assume that the next administration is full of people who also want generally for the country to run well. Then they will be crazy not to continue doing the kinds of work that we're doing. But I want the results to prove that out, not a bunch of speeches and press releases and policy statements and executive orders and so on that we could otherwise create in order to institutionalize what we're doing. So that was mostly meant to be background to build a little bit of credibility so that you would maybe believe a couple of things I wanted to leave you with on working inside the largest bureaucracy that has ever existed that may be useful for you if you should take on a problem like this in your career. And here's a couple of things I came up with. One, the more simple you can keep your message and your goals and your founding statement and your principles, the simpler you can keep that, the better off you are. In our case, we are looking to do the greatest good we can for the greatest number of people who are in the greatest amount of need with the tools at our disposal, which are, since we are a technology unit, we are mostly interested in technology. I say mostly because anything that is severely making the citizen experience worse on something that we're interested in is in scope for us. We don't get religious about even the things that we have written down in the so-called Digital Service Playbook, which is a thing you can find on the internet, such as agile delivery or agile development method. Wow, okay. Now I can see you. So we have a lot of tactics. Like we like open source. Okay, that's too bad. He was excited for a minute there. So we like open source projects, but we like them because they save us from licensing fees and they tend to avoid vendor lock-in and some other stuff like that. We like open data, even have some administration policies about releasing open data. We like that because a lot of times if we just make the data available, people will do a better job than we would have done with making it easily accessible and useful and building those shiny mobile apps. These are things that the private sector is really good at. We might as well let them do it and make it easy for them. And we like the agile development method, blah, 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 sorry. We like the agile development methodology in the cases where it leads to less waste. These are tactics. These are not religious credos for us. And the reason that it helps to make a distinction between those two is my second point, which is that you are better off the bigger you can pitch your tent and the more people you can get into it, the better off you are. In a bureaucracy as big and tangled as the ones that we work in, there are a tremendous number of people that would call themselves stakeholders. And stakeholder is a word that means somebody that is either going to be part of the problem or part of the solution, and there's really not a third way. because they have to sign off on something, approve something, move some piece of the process forward. They have some kind of ownership of some part of the thing that you care about. If you can win hearts and minds and get them working in the same direction you are, that helps a lot. You won't win all of them. You can just assume that's an axiom. And given that inertia works the way it does, the playing field is always tipped in favor of people who want the status quo or who don't want anything to change. You need to keep that population as small as you possibly can. This leads to a couple of weird things that people don't expect from us, such as it is a non-goal of my unit, of the U.S. Digital Service. It is a non-goal to undermine or replace or displace or get rid of or punish the existing industrial contractor complex. First of all, they are way the hell bigger than we are. That would be an unwise goal for us to take on, even if it was a smart thing to do. The government spends $80, $100, depends whose number you want, $80, $100, $120 billion a year on what they call IT, which is, these are words that I hate, but this is what they call it. And it is completely nonsensical to think that all of that work that entire universe will ever be done entirely in the public sector. That is not a thing we are after, and we're not out to undermine the people that are already there if they are going to do a good job at a reasonable price. Which brings me to my next, I'll make it my last point, which is you have to make it as easy as you can and at least make it possible for people that have been part of the problem in the past to change. You have to give them permission to come along and get on the bandwagon and do things in the way that you're advocating and be part of the solution. By which I mean, and this again, this isn't popular with all of our friends and allies all the time, but if you're a contractor, if you're, generally speaking, if you represent the status quo in a bureaucracy and you can see that the situation is changing, like I said, you have enough power over the situation to make yourself a big problem or a big part of the solution. And if they get convinced that there won't be any place for them in the new world after this is done, then you can guarantee that they will choose to dig in and resist what you're doing. That means you have to be willing to make friends with people that you might not have otherwise thought. So I will leave my bureaucracy fighting points there for now. I just wanted to plant one idea, which I'll make really quickly here in you guys in the audience, which is these things are difficult, but they are not impossible. A lot of you are starting companies, being part of small companies, taking investment, doing stuff like that. Think about taking on the things that are the real problems that are going to determine what kind of world our grandkids live in. Just 3 ideas for you that I made up off the top of my head are education, healthcare, and energy. I think you'll agree that those are all things that if we don't get right, then they're going to make a big difference 50 or 100 years from now. Lots of people in Silicon Valley, everybody here thinks that they're changing the world, right? So much so that it's a bad joke on TV. People hate that. Some people hate that because they think that the real power in the world is in finance or is in politics or is in this or that or the other thing, and certainly there's plenty of power there. I don't actually believe that, based on a simple thought experiment, which is that if you close your eyes and think of life 100 years ago in 1915, picture that for a second, I'm pretty sure, and then think about the difference between then and now, I'm pretty sure you will not be thinking about the amazing advantages that we now enjoy because of high-frequency trading, or because of even a piece of legislation, even though there's a couple contenders there. But I'll bet you'll be thinking mostly about things like the refrigerator and the television, the telephone. These are the things that have really changed the life, all of our lives. And these are technology-driven. So I actually do believe that technology is driving the way to the future in most ways that matter. And I would like you to think about applying your capital, your human capital, your ideas, your work to those things that really matter. And I will just leave you with that. Thank you very much.